Oh fuck! I do apologise. I don't know why I'm very sniffly today and sneezy. It just happened out of nowhere. I don't usually get sick. I'm actually since COVID-19, the frequency of me getting sick has dramatically reduced. Now, I never got sick that often to begin with, but due to the nature of my job, I got sick more frequently because I used to work in secondary schools and primary schools, and I would be in there to clean them, and then I would move on to the next school and clean that. So there'd be times where there would be people walking past me a lot, and there'd be times where I would get sick every few months. But before I got that job, I didn't get sick that much. And ever since COVID happened, I think I've maybe only gotten sick once in the space of 18 months, I want to say. I've only gotten sick once or twice, maybe. It's crazy. Like, I'm not going to preach, I'm not going to give misinformation, I'm just going to say that I'm not going to tell people who don't wear masks to wear masks, I'm not going to tell people to wear masks to not wear masks, I'm not going to tell people nothing like that. I'm not going to spread misinformation, I'm not going to goad into anyone, I'm just going to say that I have been wearing a mask when I'm in shops and, public buildings. I will wear a mask. If I'm in a situation in work where there's a lot of people walking around, I will wear a mask. But if I'm on my own, I will not wear a mask. If I'm out in the open air, I will not wear a mask. But I will say that ever since wearing a mask in a public space, I have gotten less and less sick, and I don't get sick as much as I used to if I ever did. And it's so the mask. Say what you want about them. You may disagree or whatever. That's up to you. That's your prerogative. You're an adult. But I will say that for me, wearing a mask has worked for me. And that's all I'll say about that. But I'm just going I didn't mean to start the podcast off talking about this shit. But yeah, if I didn't sneeze, you wouldn't be hearing it. But I have been fairly okay the last 18 months, and it's been great. Yeah. The 12th of September we are at now, which is, wow, now that I think about it. We are now 20 years since 9/11. Since September the 11th, 2001. We are now 20 years removed. That's crazy. It doesn't feel like 20 years. It feels much less than that. It feels like 10 years. So it does. It feels very much like 10 years since that happened. A lot of people have asked me a lot of people have asked in general, where were you when it happened? I remember exactly where I was when it happened, and I'll never forget it. It wasn't obviously living in Scotland, living in the safety of that country. I didn't feel the weight of the fear of what actually was going on over there. Obviously, I will never be able to relate to that, and to be honest, I hope I never fucking do. But it doesn't stop the fact that it was an international incident. It affected many people in many different ways, whether it was the smallest way or the biggest way. It affected a lot of people. I'm not about to get into this rabbit hole of talking politically or anything like that. I'm not going to do any of that. I'm just going to explain where I was when 9/11 occurred. So 2001 would have been my first 2 months back at school. It was my first year of high school. And I remember it was about sorry, I have to clear my throat. It was about 3:30 in the afternoon. And I was leaving. I was finished at that time. So I finished school at 3:30 on Tuesday. I think I remember my last class was RE, which is religious education for those who are not in the know. So I had just finished that class and I was leaving the school, and a friend of mine, who I'm still quite good, decent friends with today, and he ran past me and he turned around, and his words were, did you hear what happened in New York? I said, no. She's watched the telly when you get home. She was okay. I'll do just that. I probably won't, but I'll do just that. I said. So we went off. He ran home. And I could hear people walking past me as I was like walking away from the school. New York, New York, New York, planes, something like that. You know, I heard that. Now, at 3:30 in the afternoon, in this day and age, at this time in the year, what time is that in New York? So I'm going to find out right now. What time is it? Because it's actually 20 minutes past 3 right now as I write this, which is kind of creepy. Right now it's 10:23. Okay, so you're talking 5 hours. Yes, 5 hours. 5 hours. 5 hours behind. So at 3:30, that means it was 10:30 in the morning in New York. And at that point, I just want to make sure I've got my facts correct. I don't want to say anything inaccurate. Oh, right. So at 3:30 in the afternoon, 10:30 was when the towers actually fell. Would I be correct in saying that? If I'm correct in saying that, then yes, at 10:28 a.m. the North Tower collapsed. Right, so at that point, that's when my bell rang to go home at 3:30 in the afternoon, which is exactly the moment the North Tower collapsed. And it was at that point everyone was telling me, "Did you hear what happened in New York?" And I went home, and my mum picked me up from school, and I was in the car, and she said the exact same thing to me. She said, "Did you hear what happened in New York?" And I said, "No." Well, I said, "A friend just said it to me there, what happened?" And then she explained it to me, that 2 planes went into the World Trade Center, the Twin Towers. Now, at this point, I didn't know what the Twin Towers were. I heard of them. I heard of the Twin Towers because it was always a trivial thing about... I always asked my cousin what was the tallest buildings in the world, and he said it was the Twin Towers in New York. So I never knew what the Twin Towers looked like. I just knew that they were the tallest buildings in the world, I think, at least in the Western Hemisphere. So she said to me that the Twin Towers, 2 planes went into the Twin Towers and then they collapsed, and then I didn't really know what to think of it at that point. It was really weird. I was like, okay, so I went home and I seen it all on the TV. I watched all the news footage. They were showing everything that happened. And my first reaction was that it looked like something out of a movie. It looked like something out of a film, like an action film or something like that, like an action thriller. You know, I thought it didn't look real. So at this point, the towers had already collapsed, but I didn't really... It didn't look real, but it then started to look real because in the days following that, my family, specifically my mother, would never stop watching the TV. The news was on every single day. And it was really strange. I was 12 years old at this point, so I remember a lot. And it was just surreal. So yeah, after that though, my memory's a little bit wishy-washy. The only thing I remember is that the days after it, the days that followed, they would still showcase the news or the footage on the TV back and forth constantly, and I remember seeing it live every day, and the smoke still being there, the smoke still pluming from southern Manhattan, and I was like, it still didn't look real. But once I seen a photo of what the Twin Towers were, I remembered that yes, I had seen the Twin Towers before, and but I never thought about it. I never thought anything about what they were, or I just thought that yeah, I've seen these buildings before. They're in New York, but I didn't know that they were called the Twin Towers. I had no idea. I wasn't very good at noticing things like that at that time, so I had no reason to, I guess. But yeah, it was weird. So to recap, I was finishing school at 3:30 and going home from school. A friend walked past me, said, "Did you hear what happened?" I said no. I got in the car, my mum drove me home, and in the car she asked me the same question. I said no, I didn't see it. She explained it to me. I got home, turned on Sky News, and there it was, and it was the weirdest thing in the world. It was so fucking weird and scary as well. Because in the days following that, like I said, it would be on the news, the smoke constantly coming out of the southern section of Manhattan and going down towards New Jersey around that area. So it was a southwesterly direction that the smoke was going in, seemingly indefinitely. And then there was news reports. The newspapers were starting to get all the headlines in, and the worst one for me personally, the one that stuck out for me, was photos of the people that jumped. So that, as a 12-year-old, was quite disturbing to see, because I like, again, it still felt like a film. It still didn't look real. Do you know? I wasn't exposed to that much as a child at the time. You know what I mean? So yeah, it was weird. And I noticed a lot of racism came out from that day. A lot of racism came out. A lot of Islamophobia came out. A lot of fear and anger towards anyone from the Middle East came out after that time. And it was fucking terrible, absolutely terrible. But yeah, Jesus, I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it, and I still don't forget it. I mean, I've watched a lot of documentaries regarding it ever since, and like the ins and outs on how they came up with the decision to do it and why they did it, and all this fucking shit about all this grudge that each country held against America and all this crap, and vice versa, the grudge that America held against these countries. It was so fucking dramatic. It was horrible stuff. And according to Wikipedia, I don't know how deep the sources go there, but according to Wikipedia, the war in Afghanistan is technically still going, still an ongoing issue, which means it's probably one of the longest wars I've ever heard of. Maybe. I mean, that could be something I could look up. Like, what's the longest war? I don't know. Longest conflicts by duration. This is an interesting one now. So you've got number one, the 350 years war. 335 years war that went on from 1651 to 1986. Don't know what it comprised of, because I didn't click into it. Oh, it was Sicily and the Dutch Republic. So I don't know what it was about. I'm not getting into that shit. Then you've got the Arauco, I can't pronounce this, Arauso War, or Aroso War, or Arocho War, I don't know. 289 years maximum. You know, and then you've got a series of war and conflicts that went on for 781 years, 230 years. Okay, so a lot of wars went on for a long time, but some of these were ongoing to this day. Like the Tuareg rebellions, I can't pronounce it. The Kurdish separatism in Iran is ongoing. The Korean conflict is ongoing. A lot of conflicts are still ongoing. But you've got the war in Afghanistan is still ongoing, according to this, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. Well, that's it. Wow, this just happened. This just happened recently, actually. I'm sitting here saying that the war in Afghanistan is ongoing because the last time I checked, it fucking was. Apparently, the second phase had ended last month. Yes, I remember now. The Taliban's won by taking over Afghanistan. Yes. Okay. So that means the war on terror, as it's called, is over, with the Taliban regaining power. That is fucking mental. Absolutely mental. My God. Unbelievable. Never thought I'd see that. Shit. Anyway, this is dark. This is very, very dark. So let's move on, shall we? I've got problems of my own. You know? I don't need this shit. I've got problems of my own, personal problems. Particularly with appliances in my house, and nobody wants to fix them for me. My shower doesn't work, and now my washing machine doesn't work. And this is new to me. You see, I've moved out before. I moved out first when I was 21, I think. And I moved country. I moved to live with my girlfriend at the time. And I was only there for 7 months, and then she moved back with me, and I lived with my mother for a few months, and then I moved out again. This time it was locally, and I lived away for about 6 or 7 months. And in those 6 or 7 months, everything was fine. The washing machine worked, everything worked fine. You know? But then I moved back with my mother, we broke up, and then I waited for until 2020 before I decided to move out again and do it properly. And now I've been living in this particular house for about a year and 9 months, or a year and 8 months. We're coming up to 2 years of me living on my own. And up until this point, everything was fine. But ever since moving into this house, only a couple of things have been like kind of not working properly, or it was an easy fix. You know, the open fire had a piece of concrete stuck in the chimney. That was fixed. All this nonsense. But right now, the two main things that I kind of need fixed: the shower and the washing machine. And you won't believe how the shower stopped working. The pipes are leaking through the floor and dripping into the ceiling beneath, and it's causing the smoke alarms in the house to go off because it's actually making contact with the wiring in the smoke alarms, which is unsafe as fuck. And so far, one plumber has been out to look at it, and on 3 different occasions he has told me basically that it's got nothing to do with any faults, that it's my problem. He said the reason why it's doing it is because you've got wooden flooring in the bathroom, which is nonsense, because if that was the case, then the entire ceiling would be soaked, but it's not. It's the other part of the wall, the other part of the ceiling, which doesn't even match what he's talking about, and it's a nightmare. So I'm currently in the process of getting that fixed, and my washing machine has started doing stupid shit that I don't even understand. I've already asked on Reddit, and people are giving me decent advice, but I will not open the machine and fix it myself because I am not very handy with fixing appliances. I've never fixed one before, so I'm still waiting on this to get fixed now. So I'm having problems of my own at home, and it's a fucking nightmare. You know, I mean, that's one of... It's not a fear, it's just something that I just don't look forward to when it comes to living on my own and being an adult. It's one of the biggest disadvantages, is that now you've got to figure out how to do all this shit. Do you know what I mean? And it's still a learning process for me, despite the fact I'm 32 years old. But I'm getting there. I'm not scared of many things, but what am I scared of actually? Spiders. I see. A lot of people ask you, what are your biggest fears? I don't have any, really. I mean, death, I suppose. I've got a new fear. Actually, I've got a new fear. And it's a fear that happened... This is grim. It's a fear that occurred after my uncle and father passed away 2 years ago. And this fear came after this. And the fear is basically phone calls. Impromptu phone calls that I am not expecting. That's what fears me now. And the reason why it scares me now, the reason why I have a fear of these phone calls is because... It's not that I have a fear of phone calls, I have a fear of when the phone rings, what I'm going to hear when I answer it. And the reason I've got that fear is because when I found out my uncle passed away, it was a phone call that told me. And likewise, when my father passed away, It was a phone call that told me. And now every time my mother and or brother rings me on my phone, my heart sinks. I get a sinking feeling in the pit of my stomach every time I see my mother's name come up on my phone. Because then it could be anything. It could be like my dog. Like my dog's got cancer right now, and I'm waiting for that day. You know, he's not got much left. You know, his father time is still ticking, but he's coming. He's not well. He's sick. He's get cancer. So I'm waiting on that phone call within the next year, I would say. At best, I think, and that might be me being pessimistic. But he's been unwell for about a year now at this point. So I'm waiting on that phone call, and it's scaring the living shit out of me. And other phone calls, it could be anything. And it's the same with my mother as well. The day I proposed to my now fiancée, I contacted my mother to tell her, but the way in which I contacted her did not sit well with her, because she's going to get the same fear as me, because when my uncle was her brother, so she would have gotten the same phone call. And when I phoned her to tell her that I got engaged, it started off with a phone call of hello, and I said, Mum, and she immediately freaked. It's like, what, David, what? And then I told her, and she said, don't fucking do that. So, from a frightening case of nothing turned into relief, turned into congratulations. But the fact that I had to go over those two speed bumps is a problem that my mother has and what I have. I'm terrified of phone calls that I'm not expecting from family members now, and it's never going to go away, I don't think. So, that's a fear of mine. Phone calls delivering bad news. That's a fear of mine. Other fears are not nearly as big as that. Spiders. I don't have a fear of spiders per se. Spiders don't bother me if they're either small, like smaller than my fingernails, or are far away from me. Like, you can hang out on the corner of my ceiling if you like, but do not come near me or I will take you out. Other bugs, I guess, don't really bother me that much. If you bite or if you sting, stay the fuck away from me. Like wasps, I will take you to town and kill you. I actually heard a rumour that wasps are dying out, and I'm not sure if that's true. Does that mean they're endangered? Is that the word I'm looking for? I don't know who told me this. Who told me this? Wasps are in a decline, with reduction in numbers of 50% in the last 20 years. So we've got another 20 years before they fuck off. Yeah, right, okay. This fucking article is saying wasps are just as endangered as bees and you should stop stomping on them. No, I will never stomp on a bee. I will stomp on a wasp, and I will have no fucking fear of doing it, and I will feel no remorse. Wasps are the devil. You know, if there's such thing as a god and the devil, and God created bees, then the devil was like, oh, I can create bees as well, but here we go, here's a fucking wasp. You know, wasps are arseholes. Don't like wasps. What other fears do I have? Hamsters. Hamsters. This is much more a laughing point for everyone else than me, but I'm not right. I struggle to explain this to people. Like, mice and rats, ugh, get the fuck away from me. I tolerate a mouse quicker than a rat. But a rodent, I don't like rodents, especially small ones. You know? But hamsters, like, I don't know why I don't like hamsters that much. I don't know where it came from. Like, I just feel this odd uneasiness around them. I don't fear them as you'd think. Like, it's more of a case of they creep me out. Like, I don't know why or how it came to be. But ever since I was, I want to say 16 years old, that's when I first discovered it. Like, I handled a hamster that my sister got. And it was fine until he started moving up my wrist, and it started to really, like, I jumped out of my fucking skin. I didn't like the feel of it. I didn't like how it felt running up my arm. I didn't like it. So like, it's if they move in a way that I don't like, I will freak out. That's where I stand with hamsters. But like, I'll pet a hamster if that's even possible, but I don't think I'd let one walk around on my hand. I don't like, no. I will look at them from a distance, but I will not. I don't think I'll handle one. Yeah. So what have we covered so far? Fucking 9/11, stupid appliances in my house, my fears, nothing that is gaming related. So why don't we get in to gaming? Because that's what we do here. And if this is your first time here, then welcome to the GB Gaming Podcast. This is episode 17 for the 12th of September 2021, and this is your host, Dave, talking to you on GB Gaming, where video games come first. You can find this on YouTube, you can also find it on SoundCloud, and ultimately, Spotify. I'll get to the links and all of that at the end, but I think you can find them down in the description below, and the rest of that you can figure out yourself. But I've got a lot of things I'd like to talk about on this episode today. The main topic being the PlayStation Showcase, of course. I didn't catch it until well after it was over, and I just looked up some of the highlights, and that's the ones I'm going to be talking about. I'll probably mention the other things that were brought up in the showcase as well, but if I'm not that interested in it, I'm not going to put too much effort into talking about it. But that's what I want to get into right now, I guess. So the PlayStation Showcase occurred on, I think it was Friday. I think it was the 10th of September. I could be wrong. Or was the 19th? The 9th of September, sorry. See, it happened. It feels like it happened a couple of days ago, but I think it was the 9th of September. Yes, it was the 9th of September. And a number of things were introduced. Nothing, not really gameplay footage. Not a lot of gameplay footage from a lot of these games reveals or trailers. And most of them are not going to come out until 2023. And I guess that's fine, you know, you've got to announce them at some point. A lot of people are not happy about that. A lot of people are not happy that all we got were CG trailers. I mean, like, that's always been the way. Look at the Dead Island trailer that was announced. A lot of people went crazy for that game, and it was just a CG trailer. Now it's got quite a bit of a cult following in the end. But the first thing that they showed off was the Knights of the Old Republic remake trailer. And I don't know what to make of it. I really don't. And that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. You see, fucking Knights of the Old Republic, Star Wars, I never got to play it when it was relevant, I guess. I never got to play it when it was relevant. And it was way before my time. Well, no, it wasn't before my time. I just didn't have a computer to play it on. And then obviously it eventually came out on the original Xbox, and I didn't have an Xbox, so I couldn't play it there either. But I can play it now, but it's rather dated. I have played it before. I have it on my Steam account. I have played it before. But it is a little bit dated from my perspective, because I've been spoiled by Mass Effect and Dragon Age. Going back and playing Knights of the Old Republic is a little bit of a dated experience. I have no disrespect towards the game, because I've seen what the game is. I've looked it up. I've looked at various different gameplay footage of it, and I can see the appeal, but I don't think I would want to put the time into it when it looks like that. Especially after the last few years, I've been hearing people clamour for a remake or a remaster of the same game. So I held off, hoping that maybe it will get announced at some point, and here we are. It got announced. It seems to be coming out exclusively on PlayStation. I don't know how true that is or how long it will be exclusive for, because the original one was a PC and Xbox property. So it'll be interesting to see how long this will stay exclusive to PlayStation. I think it's coming out on PS5. I don't know if it's coming out on PS4. The trailer never specified as such. It says Knights of the Old Republic remake, and then it said A Legend remade for PS5. So I guess if you're going to look to buy this, you may get a PS5 to buy it, or maybe hope that they will announce this for Xbox Series or Series X in the next couple of years, or a year at least. I don't think this will stay on PlayStation. Now, it's developed by Aspyr. I don't know who that is, so I'm going to look it up. Aspyr. Aspyr Media Incorporated is an American video game developer and publisher founded by Michael Rogers and Ted Stalick in Austin, Texas. Originally founded to bring top gaming titles to Mac OS, the company, since 2005. So the company since 2005 has become a publisher and developer of entertainment for multiple gaming platforms. And the games that they have released are mostly ports. Not so much developed, but mostly ports. Games that they have ported and developed have been games such as Star Wars Episode 1 Racer for Nintendo Switch, PS4 and Xbox One, Jedi Knight Jedi Academy, Stubbs the Zombie, Rebel Without a Pulse, Star Wars Republic Commando, and now Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic Remake. They also ported Nintendo Switch's version of Civilization 6, and then eventually porting it to the PS4 and Xbox One, and then eventually the Android. So their job is mostly porting games, I guess, to different consoles. Games that were never originally out on these consoles, these guys are porting them over. So, but they've been porting Star Wars games ever since the early 2000s. They ported Star Wars Galactic Battlegrounds, Jedi Knight 2, and Jedi Knight Jedi Academy on the Mac back in 2002 and 2003. They've ported Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4 to the Mac. So back in the day, they were mostly Mac porters, for lack of a better term. But Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic Remake is coming out on PS5 and Microsoft Windows. So it's currently going to be a console exclusive, and I'm excited to see what it is they do with it. Now, I know I said back in previous episodes that it's difficult for me to talk about current consoles, having not owning a current console. I've been talking about these current consoles since last June, and it's kind of, it's heart-wrenching looking back on early episodes of this podcast talking about the PS5 and how I'm eventually going to get one at Christmas time, and that I cannot wait to play Spider-Man Miles Morales and all that shit. And I still haven't played Spider-Man Miles Morales, nor have I played anything on a PS5 console because I do not own a goddamn PS5. And it's killing me. It's absolutely killing me. I just can't get one. You know, there's all sorts of shite factors surrounding it as well. You know, money. I'm putting my money towards more important things. But I digress. So Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, coming to PS5 and PC. And that's just great. They also showed off Project Eve, which I don't know what it is. I don't know what it comprises of. It looks cool. The visuals look incredible, I have to say. But it kind of reminds me of the old God of War games, or Bayonetta, particularly. It's a very stylistic hack and slash game. And it's being developed by a South Korean developer called Shift Up. And it looks cool. I like hack and slashers. I've got a lot of time for them. They're very fun, they're very addictive. And this one looks very stylish. The graphics look stunning. The main protagonist reminds me of Bayonetta in some form or another. She's just, the way she moves, the way she acts, she reminds me of Bayonetta. And I don't even know if the developers want to hear that comparison, but I can't help what I see. And that's what she looks like to me. So I'm quite excited about that as well. I like seeing all these new games, and it's always a guess of whether or not I'll actually go out and play them. Because I'm more of because I've got a retro gaming frame of mind, I lean more towards older games. So I never really look at these newer games until it's too late or irrelevant. And they also brought out a trailer for the new Borderlands spin-off starring Tiny Tina. And I don't know what to think of it. I'm not really a massive Borderlands fan. But Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, it looks decent. It just looks like another Borderlands game starring Tiny Tina. Anyone who's into Borderlands will probably be into this. And what else did they announce? They also announced that game that I thought was going to be that Final Fantasy game. Ended up being called Forspoken. So that looks quite cool. Kind of reminds me of Infamous, the way the character uses her powers. So I'm interested to see what that's like. I can't say much about it, to be honest. But the visuals, I will say, the draw distance looks incredible. The graphics look amazing. I think it's going to be one of the graphical showcases of the PS5 when it comes out. Or Xbox Series X if it's coming out on that as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of it. Also announced was Rainbow Six Extraction. Not interested in the slightest. I'm sorry, I am not interested in these Rainbow Six games. I'm not interested in Ghost Recon. Any Tom Clancy title other than Splinter Cell. Not interested. So I really couldn't care less. But if you're into Rainbow Six, you've got another one that's coming out in January. There you go. Alan Wake Remastered. Now, I already brought it up on the last episode that it was announced. This showcase finally showed off the trailer. And the only first thing that interested me here was the publisher. Epic Games are publishing this. That surprised me. But it's still being developed by Remedy Entertainment, obviously. This is just a porting job. Or an upscale remaster job. I'm looking forward to this one. Alan Wake, like I said, was an out-of-nowhere game for me. I found it in my local GameStop and just decided to buy it because it looked cool. The special edition looked cool. So I grabbed it, and I played it, and I beat it, and I never went back to it, but I remember it. I remember it very well, and I absolutely loved it, but I never played it since. I've dabbled in the PC version since, but I never really stuck to it. I kind of hoped that it would get a remaster at some point, and eventually it got announced. So I'm really happy that Alan Wake is getting remastered, because I would love to go back and play that again. Especially in 4K. Hopefully 4K 60 frames per second on PS4 Pro. It might not happen, but I'll be happy either way that I'll get to play this. Because it's a fantastic game. And my missus swears against it. She didn't like it. She thought it was too scary at the time. And I said, you need to give it another chance, because this is a game that's for you. She loves horrors. She loves psychological thrillers. She likes all that kind of thing, and Alan Wake ticks those boxes. And the fact that it's coming out in another fucking 4 or 5 weeks is like, I can't wait. The next thing they showed off was Grand Theft Auto 5. It didn't get the best feedback from people, mainly because I can kind of see the frustration. People that have been playing Grand Theft Auto 5 since 2013 were now almost 10 years away from the release of that game, and it's still relevant. I hate to say it, but it is. That game still makes money. It still gets played by the millions. Rockstar know this, and they know that when they release this, it's going to sell even more. Because it's going to give a new audience. And the new audience is going to want to play new versions of Grand Theft Auto 5. On the newer consoles. It's going to happen. And say what you want about Rockstar. I personally do not give a flying shit about this new version of Grand Theft Auto 5. I'll probably get it when I eventually get a PS5. I will probably get it. Because I've got all the time in the world for Grand Theft Auto 5's single player offering. I've got all the time in the world for that, and I will always play it. But I have it on PC. That's the best version of the game I've ever played. Don't know how they can top that. For me personally, I love the way it looks on PC. That's as good as it gets for me. So I'm playing that version at the minute. When I say at the minute, I'm saying I'm slowly but surely trying to beat that game, but I'm playing it minutes at a time, hours at a time. I am not in any rush because it's a very fun game and I want to enjoy it instead of rushing through it. I've no time for the online of Grand Theft Auto 5, I really don't. You know, I used to for a while, that was when I was playing with friends and family over Xbox Live. It was fun that way. I did enjoy it, but playing it on my own with a bunch of strangers and like grinding up my level, doing all that shit, it's not for me. I don't really have time to do that anymore. I do have time, I just don't want to put my free time onto it, so I don't do it. So yeah, Grand Theft Auto 5, it's coming out on March 2022. It was supposed to come out this year, if I'm not mistaken, but I kind of had a feeling that it was going to come out later. But if you're a Grand Theft Auto 5 nut and you want more of this, I guess you'll be happy, but a lot of people are not happy. Because like I said, the game came out in 2013. Anyone who's been a fan since that day, like myself, I guess, we would like to see another Grand Theft Auto game come out at some point, but God knows when that's going to be. God knows. We might not get an announcement for GTA 6 until at the very least 2023. 2023 is the earliest I will give Rockstar to announce Grand Theft Auto 6. And we're still waiting on the rumours circulating about the Grand Theft Auto Trilogy remasters being announced as well. Still waiting on that. That could be announced at the Game Awards. Imagine. Oh, that would be exciting. For those of you who are not in the know, or rather, I was in the know, I just didn't talk about it on my podcast last week, and I should have, but Grand Theft Auto 3, Grand Theft Auto Vice City, and Grand Theft Auto San Andreas are supposedly getting Unreal Engine remasters for modern consoles, including the Nintendo Switch, I think. I could be wrong. And it's also supposed to be developed by a new Rockstar company called Rockstar Dundee. Now, a little bit of history here. Rockstar Dundee are a company that emerged since 2020, and they used to be called Ruffian Games Limited. And Ruffian Games Limited started in 2008, and they were headed by, how were they called? Oh, the same person that created the original Grand Theft Auto, if I'm not mistaken. I don't want to speak out of turn. Let me just find out. Okay, David Jones, Scottish video game programmer and entrepreneur who co-founded the video game developer DMA Design, which is now Rockstar North. He's from Dundee. DMA Design was from Dundee, and then they moved to Edinburgh when they became Rockstar North. That's where I'm getting the confusion. But a lot of those people went from DMA Design, I think. Could be wrong. Where am I getting this from? Crackdown. The original Crackdown was developed by Real Time Worlds and directed by David Jones. That's where I'm getting that confusion from. And Ruffian Games Limited came after the original Crackdown and started on Crackdown 2. That's where I'm getting that confused by. And it was founded by Gary Liddon, Billy Thompson and Gareth Noyce. And their headquarters were in Dundee in Scotland, the same city that the original Grand Theft Auto was created. And they have now been called Rockstar Dundee since 2020. And their last developed game was a game called Rad TV for Microsoft Windows. And they also worked on Crackdown 3 for Microsoft Windows and Xbox One, with the lead developer being Sumo Digital. They worked on it, but they worked on the multiplayer mode for it, is what I'm saying. They also ported Halo 3, 4, 3 ODST, and Halo Reach to Windows, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X. I don't know how they worked on that, but whatever. They worked on a bunch of Kinect games as well. So there's a rumour, or I think it's been confirmed, that the Rockstar Dundee is leading the development on remastered versions of Vice City or GTA 3, Vice City, and San Andreas that will use the Unreal Engine and are due to be released either in late 2021 for mobile phones, Switch, PS4, or PS5 Stadia, all modern consoles. Due to be released late 2021. So where are we? September. They have until December to get these games out, and I swear to God, if those games come out, I will be all over that shit. I love those 3 games equally. I love Grand Theft Auto 3, I love Vice City, I love San Andreas. Grand Theft Auto 3 would be my personal favourite, but that could be down to nostalgia, because Grand Theft Auto 3 was one of the most important games that I ever played in my life. It introduced me to what the PS2 could do. It was my first ever PS2 game. I got it with my PS2 in 2001. I'll never forget the hype I had for that game. It was everything I wanted it to be, and it holds a special place in my heart as my favourite Grand Theft Auto game of all time. I think I've beaten it. I want to say I've beaten it about 7 or 8 times, maybe 10 times. I don't know, but I've beaten it a lot. So much so that I just don't even bother watching the cutscenes when I play it, because I already know what the cutscenes are. I platinumed it on PS4 about 4 years ago, or 5 years ago, or probably 4 years ago, and I also beat it on PC last year as well. Loved it. Absolutely love Grand Theft Auto 3, and it'll be amazing to play these games on modern consoles with a new engine. I'm so excited to see what they do with that. I really am. So, yeah, where did I go with this? Oh yeah, I was talking about Grand Theft Auto 5, and then Grand Theft Auto 6, and then Rockstar Dundee. So, yeah. It's nice that those games are in the hands of Scottish developers again, this time from Dundee, which is just mental. You know, back home where they were. It's crazy. Absolutely fucking crazy. Anyway, let's move on. So the next game that they released a trailer for after Grand Theft Auto 5 for the PS5 and whatnot, I think it was Ghostwire Tokyo they showed. Now, I saw the trailer for this, and I'm going to be honest, it looks cool. The visual style looks cool. I don't know what the game is. I haven't looked into it that much. It looks like a psychological game where you control things with your mind. Yeah, it's in Tokyo. It's all freaky and weird, and it's like, do you know what? I'm going to walk it back, and I'm going to retract what I said. I'm looking at the trailer again, and it does look pretty cool. It seems like it would have a really brilliant story. A game like that looks very narrative focused. I think I might like it. I'm all for weird, so I might have a look at this when it finally comes out. But I don't know if it's coming out on PS4. If it comes out on PS4, at least I'll definitely get to try it. But if not, I really need to get a PS5. So Ghostwire Tokyo was shown, and then we get to the Marvel shit. And when I say Marvel shit, I mean Marvel shite. Guardians of the Galaxy got another trailer. Personally, not interested. I'm really not. Although the detail on that golden retriever, fucking adorable. That dog looks so fucking real. It looks really cool. But other than that, I couldn't care less about Guardians of the Galaxy. It's my least favourite Marvel property. And I hate to say that, but it is. It's my least favourite Marvel property if the cinematic universe is anything to go by. I don't like much of the characters. I'm not a fan of Star-Lord. I mean, Chris Pratt is funny, but I don't like him as a character. But each to their own, I guess. If this is your thing, you're going to love this, I'd suppose. Maybe. I don't know. And after the Guardians of the Galaxy trailer was shown, a trailer for Blood Hunt was shown. Now, I think this trailer was shown a few months ago, and it's one of those multiplayer style looking games. It looks like one of those hero games where you get to play as different characters, or am I getting that mixed up with something else? I'm looking at the trailer right now, and it looks like one of those online games where you customize your character and you go fighting other players as different classes. It looks kind of like one of those multiplayer games, kind of like a hero shooter, but a little bit more dark and gritty and more stylistic. Not my kind of game. I mean, when you end a trailer with sign up now, that means it's very much online focused. Not my cup of tea. And then they went and showed off footage for Deathloop. Again, not the biggest fan of it yet. It looks cool, don't get me wrong, but I'm not a fan of these kind of games overall. I get the appeal, but it just reminds me of a Bethesda game. Do you know, it's one of those games that look Bethesda as fuck, or arcane as fuck. That's what Deathloop looks like to me. And then they released this other bizarre trailer as well. I couldn't make it out, but it's weird. It says Kid Amnesia, presented by Radiohead and Epic Games. And that's, what the fuck was that? You know, Radiohead? Epic Games and Radiohead, the band, are partnering up for an interactive experience called Kid Amnesia. It's not entirely clear what exactly it'll be like to experience, but it's described as an upside-down digital/analog universe created from original artwork and recordings to commemorate 21 years of Radiohead's Kid A and Amnesiac. It's coming to PS5 in November 2021, so nobody really knows what it is. Okay. And the next game that was shown is a game called Tchia. And this was known as the Tropical Adventure trailer. Now, I don't know what to make of this. I really don't. I mean, it's described as, what was it they said? One of the cutest reveals of the PlayStation Showcase was Tchia, a brand new open-world adventure. You'll be able to explore a tropical archipelago on your boat, but also use your ability to possess animals and use them to solve puzzles. You'll have a few other things in your arsenal, including a parachute, all of which you'll need as you explore and engage in combat against various monsters. So it's just another open world game, a little more cutesy than what we're used to, so again, I don't know what it is. I'll have to just keep looking up more footage of it if I want to see more. The next reveal was Uncharted Legacy of Thieves collection. Originally, I thought it was the entire Uncharted collection, including 1, 2, 3, and 4, and Lost Legacy, and Golden Abyss. I thought it was every game being remastered for PS5, which, now that I think about it, you really dropped the ball there. Naughty Dog, you could have done that. You could have released every single Uncharted title and remastered it and ported it to PS5. That was a missed opportunity in my books, because we only have Golden Abyss on Vita. It has not been ported anywhere else other than that. I don't know. I think that was a missed opportunity. You could have done that, similar to what they did with the God of War games or Metal Gear Solid. You could have done the same thing for Uncharted, but you didn't. You're just releasing Uncharted 4 on PS5 when you could have released all of them. So, yeah, that was a bit of a miss for me. Well, we're getting into the nitty-gritty now. All the good stuff in my books. Because the last couple of trailers, besides one, I suppose, they kicked it off with Marvel's Wolverine, a new game developed by Insomniac Games, the same developer that made Marvel's Spider-Man and Miles Morales on PS4 and PS5 respectively. And Wolverine is going to be another one of those games in their library, in their arsenal. So I'm looking forward to this one wholeheartedly. This would definitely be a game that would probably push me to get a PS5 quicker. But I think I'll save that statement for the next, or for the last game that they revealed. Because the next game they revealed after Wolverine was Gran Turismo 7. Yep, it's another Gran Turismo game, folks. It's gorgeous. It looks amazing. It's a good graphical showcase for the PS5. It looks amazing. It looks stunning. It's just, that's all that was to me. Look at how pretty these cars look. That's what they always do when it comes to brand new consoles. They show a driving game. a racing game, because somehow that's where games look their best. I don't know how, but that's what they do. So Gran Turismo 7's coming out in March 2022. And then after they showed that, they showed off another Marvel trailer. This is the third one tonight. And this time it's Spider-Man 2. I did not expect that. I did not expect that in the slightest. Especially after we got Miles Morales only last year. I did not expect Spider-Man 2 to be announced. Now, like I said though, it was only announced. So it doesn't really mean much when we find out that it's actually coming in 2023. Potentially fucking delayed. God knows. But either way, I'm psyched because one of my favourite Marvel characters is going to be in this one. Fucking Venom. Venom is coming to Spider-Man on PS5. I can't wait for that. So I better get a move on and get Miles Morales played and also replay Marvel Spider-Man so that I can prepare myself for Spider-Man 2. This looks incredible. Like, when you hear Venom do that hissing noise, that yes, just I shook. I am so excited. I love Venom. Venom is one of my favourite, if not my favourite, Marvel character that isn't a hero. Well, you know what I mean. I love it. And finally, the creme de la creme of this entire showcase. We finally got a trailer for the next God of War. God of War Ragnarok is actually getting called God of War Ragnarok. And I cannot wait for it. It looks amazing. Looks good. Got a bit of gameplay in there as well. Fantastic. I can't wait. It's more God of War. And it's more of the new God of War. I mean, he's got everything here. He's got his Blades of Chaos. We've got new characters. You know, the Atreus has an older sounding voice. He's a teenager now by the sounds of it, like a young teenager. It looks amazing, and as per usual, the main voice cast does a spectacular job, and that's only from listening to this trailer. So I cannot wait to see more of this game. I can't wait to play it. I loved the reboot, soft reboot of God of War on PS4. Loved it. So I'm more than happy to see this one. And we got to hear a snippet of who voices Thor, who we got to see at the end of God of War on PS4. He's been voiced by Ryan Hurst, who you may know from Sons of Anarchy, that's where I know him from, and more recently, Walking Dead. So that's where I see them recently. So I'm looking forward to hearing his voice in this game as well. And speaking of Thor. A lot of criticism. Stupid criticism, if you ask me. Unwarranted. For Thor in God of War Ragnarok. And I suppose for the trailer in general, a lot of criticism. Specifically towards two particular things. So obviously they were criticising Thor because of what he looks like. This is just... You could say... Like, I'm calling it fat shaming. I'm calling it fat shaming because they think it's safe to do this because he's just a video game character. Because the Thor that everyone is apparently used to seeing is the Thor that we saw on the Avengers, on Marvel's Cinematic Universe. Chris Hemsworth. That's Thor to everyone for some fucking reason. They don't realise that Thor was a Nordic, mythological, Norse god. He was not born of Marvel. He is not Marvel's brainchild. He did not start his legacy, as it were, in Marvel. He was not invented by Marvel. He is not a Marvel property. The Marvel has a depiction of Thor in their comic books, yes, but that is not what Thor is. You know, Thor has wisecracks. He's a handsome man. He's built like a tank to an extent, you know, apart from Endgame. But that's, for some strange reason, people were expecting Thor to look like that in this new game. Why? Where did that idea come from? Because from what I remember, I'm not like when I looked at the photo, the screenshot of Thor, you know, the character portrait of Thor for God of War Ragnarok, I was not surprised that he looked like this. I was not surprised in the slightest. Do you know why? Because I remember the ending to God of War from 2018, where Thor shows up at Kratos' house, and when we seen him, obviously he's shrouded in a cloak, but I could tell that he was a big dude. Like, I don't mean tall, I mean big. You know, he was bulky. I knew that just by looking at the width of the girth of him and the size of his fucking hands. The way he stood. So, if you're complaining about the look of Thor now, you are 4 years too late. Because this was established 4 years ago, clearly. And he arguably looks much closer to the mythological figure than what the Marvel creation does. The Marvel creation is a pretty boy. This is what Thor could have looked like. Realistically. Nobody was benching or lifting weights and eating healthily back then. They were drinking heavily and kicking people's arses. I'm saying back then as if Thor really existed, but you know what I'm talking about. The depiction of Thor in mythology does vary, but the one we see the most is the long red hair, the long red-headed, red-coloured beard. You know, the ginger beard, the ginger hair, the look of him is not unsurprising, and it shouldn't be to anyone else. So, and if you're surprised by that, then you obviously seen Thor first from a Marvel property, and that's sad. That's really sad. Another thing that was criticised about God of War Ragnarok was apparently the use of reused animations. I mean, I can't believe I'm getting into this. This is ridiculous. God of War Ragnarok shows footage of Kratos and Atreus jumping into a boat. And it's the same animation as how he gets into the boat in God of War 2018. And that rubbed someone the wrong way. Now, people are saying he's trolling, but I disagree. I disagree that this person was trolling. I think that this person was serious until he got called out for it, and then he decided to walk it back and say that he was trolling. But that's up for debate. If you believe he was trolling, then go ahead, believe it. I don't think he was. I think he got caught out and he feels foolish, and now he's walking it back and saying, oh, I was only trolling, look at all these ponies, Sony ponies getting defensive, blah blah blah. Whatever, mate. But basically, he complained about that and it blew up. It got blown way out of proportion. I think it's ridiculous. It's stupid to complain about something like that. Assets get reused all the time. Animations get reused all the time. God knows. You're sitting there saying all the ponies are getting angry and all that shit, right? Which makes me realise that you are in fact someone who prefers to play on Xbox or PC. I'll say Xbox. Which means at some point you were probably a fan of, I don't know, say Gears of War. Right? Let's just say that. And let's just say that you like Gears of War. You like them all. You've played them all. You like them all. No complaints there. All you need to do in any Gears of War game is hold the left analog stick forward and you can see the pot calling the kettle black, so to speak. You know, you can see the hypocrisy in your words. Because if you were to put every Gears of War game side by side, that's 5 games, or 6, depending on if you want to include Judgment. Hold the left analog stick and just watch the way the characters run, or jog, or move, whatever. They do it the exact same way in every single Gears of War game. The animations are reused. You can't sit there and say that God of War is being a clone, or Ragnarok is being a clone of God of War 2018 because they're reusing a couple of animations. Because of course they're using a couple of animations. Why would they create a brand new animation of Kratos getting into a boat? They don't need to do that. It's literally just a transition. Who cares? I responded to this idiot on Twitter. Now, I don't even know. It could have been trolling and everyone's just feeding him. But at the same time, how the fuck do you come up with that? Do you know what I mean? How do you come up with that? He goes, God of War Ragnarok looks like a clone of 2018 God of War. Even the animations are unchanged. And I said, Grand Theft Auto Vice City looks like a clone of GTA 3. Even the animations are unchanged. And I said, footage of protagonist opening a car door and getting in. Because it's pretty much 90% the same fucking animation, because who gives a fuck? You know, I wonder if this person's the same person that would complain about developers giving people crunch, or putting people through crunch hours to get games finished. And then under the same breath, you're complaining about things being reused. Because maybe using the same animations is a massive cut in time, because it's not fucking important. Perhaps it was a good idea to reuse the animation, because who fucking gives a shit? You're only jumping on a boat. Again, I'm probably feeding the troll here, so I'm not going to get too much into it. But nevertheless, it's a ridiculous observation, whether you're trolling or not. But I personally believe you were not trolling until you got called out. You now have 4,000 comments, 7,000 retweets, and 4,000 likes. So congratulations, you got the attention you thoroughly wanted, you dick. Oh my god, you fucking twat. I'm going to go back and talk about Alan Wake Remastered for a second, because I also heard that the Alan Wake Remastered game is, for those of you who don't remember, the original game had a lot of advertisement in the game. A lot of advertisement. And that included Energizer batteries, which are the batteries that you use to charge up your torch to use against enemies. And in Alan Wake, in order to get enemies to go away, you need to shine a light on them to either back them away from you or outright kill them. And the game has a lot, and the game uses batteries, and they happen to be Energizer batteries. And there was a lot of Verizon billboards throughout the game as well. And I'm looking at this article, and it says, Alan Wake Remastered is ditching the Energizer batteries and Verizon billboards. Remedy's 2010 third-person shooter was chock-a-block with product placement from various companies. And it's exactly what it is. It's making some big changes to the content. Specifically, all the in-game real-world product placement is being removed. The stuff appeared in a few different forms in the 2010 original. You could spot Verizon billboards around the town while playing. Folks drove around in branded cars like Lincolns too. And the most notable was the Energizer branded flashlight Alan Wake yields throughout the game, allowing the author turned video game star to fight off the evil shadow monsters infesting the town of Bright Falls. Alan Wake even finds Energizer branded batteries scattered around the world too. If you are worried about the songs and fake TV shows being removed, Remedy PR also confirmed that all that stuff will be left untouched, because obviously it's not branded, it's a complete original creation by Remedy themselves, so why would they remove that? But overall, yes, that was the PlayStation Showcase for 2021, and it was decent. Most of it was non-gameplay footage. That's fine to me. These were mostly announcements. I get that. That's okay, because we're going to see more of it as the year goes on. I don't know why people are clamouring for these games to have gameplay trailers, and why people are clamouring for these games to come out right now. You want my God's honest opinion? I think the gaming market is oversaturated. I really do. There are far too many games out these days. We can't have every game. We just can't. I think there's too many games out. We have too much. So I am fine with these games being pushed, delayed, or whatever. Take your time. Don't sit there and complain about crunch, and then under the same breath complain when a game isn't even out yet, or when there's no gameplay footage. You want companies to take their time? Let them take their time. Video games are not made in the same way they were made 20 years ago. You know? Fucking complaining about reused animations. Look at Vice City and San Andreas. They literally used the same assets from prior installments, and that's how they were released so quick. That's how Vice City was released in under a year after Grand Theft Auto 3, because a lot of the same assets were used, and all they had to do was change the theme, some animations, and, you know, the engine was already there. All they had to do was fart around with it and change it up a bit to make it worthy of a sequel. Or prequel in Vice City's case. Ridiculous. But, again, like I said, it's not a big deal. But the PlayStation Showcase overall was satisfactory in my books. I'm looking forward to seeing what most of these games are and what they're going to be like when they come out. So, I'm satisfied. Really excited for God of War Ragnarok and Alan Wake Remastered, which is coming out in October. I'm very happy to see that. So, I give the PlayStation Showcase a 7 out of 10. I don't like giving scores, I really don't. Anyway, now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's talk about me, because I'm important and I deserve attention. No, not really. But I'm going to talk about what I've been playing lately. And, again, like I said last time, not that much. I'm still trying to play Spelunky. I am damn trying. I really am. I want to like that game, and that's why I keep trying. And going by people's advice, they're all saying the same thing. Keep trying. That's how I enjoyed it, because you just need to keep playing it. And I'm sticking with that opinion. And I'm trying to get as much out of it as I possibly can. I even went so far as to ask on Reddit. I asked, when will this game click for me? This was 3 days ago, so this was just after I wrote the last episode of this podcast. Because I said, I'm new to Spelunky as a whole. I love the gameplay itself, as well as the visuals, etc. But I'm struggling to reach that part of the game where I finally, quote-unquote, get it. So far, I seem to be just blindly going through the mine, dying, and starting again. It's an endless loop, and I don't know where the overall enjoyment lies. There is no progression of any kind from where I'm looking. Nothing carries over. This is the most rogue of roguelikes I've ever played. It's relentless. But when does this game truly click? I want to enjoy this game more, but I just cannot stick to it. And that was my post on Reddit. And I got a lot of friendly replies. The one that got the most upvotes, though, says this. And this is from 12/3/45. Don't know what that means, but whatever. He said, I believe Spelunky's fun comes from your constant learning of the game itself and seeing how far you can go. You learn from your mistakes and try better in the next run. If a boulder fell on you from taking the golden idol, then you know to get the hell out of there the next time you go in. If you die from landing on spikes, then maybe you should jump on them, or maybe you should not jump on them anymore. When I introduced Spelunky 2 to my friends and we finally started playing online together, which, by the way, friends can really help if you enjoy anything, friends can really help you enjoy anything, we all found ourselves getting over a loss real fast, quickly saying, well, that's Spelunky, then immediately starting again and saying, this is the one, which it rarely ever was. Every time we got a little further, we would count that as an achievement in and of itself and would try to make that distance more consistent. All I'm saying is, Spelunky is about personal victories and you should not fret over those dumb old bats that keep killing you so darn much. And I take that advice on board wholeheartedly because I agree. I went into that game thinking that there was some sort of progression system put in. And there is, apparently, but it's not as it's not as not as generous as you might have I would have liked, but it's there. But the only progression based thing in the game is that of shortcuts, which basically means if you finish an entire level, I think you unlock a shortcut to go to the next level, and so on and so forth. I think that's how it works. And that's basically it. There is nothing to it. You don't carry weapons over, you don't carry anything like that over. So I'm taking that on board, and I'm still trying to get used to it. Yeah, Spelunky's good, but I want to enjoy it, and I am enjoying it. But I want to find the part of the game where I'm like, I love this game, I can't put it down. I haven't reached that yet. Still trying, but I'll get there eventually. I'm also playing Burnout Paradise Remastered on PS4. Nothing, no reason. I was just browsing through my library looking for a game to just play casually, and I found Burnout on my library, so I just re-downloaded that, and I've been playing that. And I've also been playing Driver Parallel Lines on PC, simply because I played that game a lot on PS2 back in the day, but I don't remember it that much. Like, I've played it a lot in the sense that I played it twice and beat it twice. That's a lot for me, especially in a short space of time. But it was Driver Parallel Lines, I believe, is I'm not going to say it's the black sheep of all the Driver games, because that probably will go to Driver 3, but I'd say it's the least known of the games. That's what I believe, because I think Driver 3 had a lot of attention to it, to the point where it just disappointed everyone when it came out, and it was not very well liked. And Driver Parallel Lines, while technically being much better than Driver 3, didn't get the attention I believe it should have got, and that's a shame. You know, and I mean, I don't think if Parallel Lines came out instead of Driver 3, I think that game would have been really successful. Like, I think it would have done a lot better. But history is what it is, and Driver 3 really stabbed a lot of fans in the back, figuratively speaking, and it wasn't the same again, the Driver series. You know, it got slightly better with Driver San Francisco on Xbox 360 and PS3, but Parallel Lines is what I would say the black sheep of the franchise, because it came out in a time where everyone was still bummed out by Driver 3. They probably didn't trust Driver Parallel Lines to be any better, but it was. I personally believe it was. They took a lot of things out of it. They took away the film director mode, and they made the gunplay a little bit more better than what it was in Driver 3 as well. They made it more enjoyable. But there was more driving aspects in Driver Parallel Lines, I have to say. Which is funny like that. You improve the gunplay, but you make it more about the driving. It's just weird. Because Driver 3 had driving in it, but they also had a lot of stupid gun sections, which I just couldn't handle. They were terrible. But I really like Driver Parallel Lines. In fact, I really like Driver 3, believe it or not. Driver 3 is actually quite good as a driving game, personally. But Driver Parallel Lines was good, and the story on it was interesting as well. It did a very bold thing that I don't think I had ever seen in a game before. It starts off in 1970s New York, and halfway through the game, it fast forwards to about 30 or 40 years later, and you're playing in 2006. So everything's all modern. All the developmental differences about New York City that happened around that time are now intact. Like, for example, the aforementioned World Trade Center is fully visible in the 1970s section of Driver Parallel Lines, but in the second half of the game, obviously, they're not there. That game came out 5 years after 9/11, and as such, they tried to put the correct bits around that particular area. So it's as a version of New York, it's pretty cool. Very compressed, obviously. I mean, there's a lot of landmarks that are very close together, and they shouldn't be, but that's video games for you. But I really like Driver Parallel Lines. I think the driving is really good, very tight, and I'm really enjoying it on PC right now. Really enjoying it. Now, I think that's all I've got to talk about. I think that's it. Where are we? We're about an hour and 20 something minutes into this podcast. Jesus. See, I always try and fit these podcasts in an hour, but this is the second time I've went way over that. We're now at an hour and a half almost, I think. I guess I'll talk about my last review that I did that came out on the 10th of September. That being my review of AVGN 1 and 2 Deluxe, which is a remastered version collection of 2 AVGN games that came out between 2013 and 2016, I think. And I didn't get to play them until this year. And I always wanted to review something related to Cinemassacre, but couldn't think of what to review until I discovered those games. And it was at that point I thought, well, there we go. Now I can talk about Cinemassacre and still put it under a game review. Because Cinemassacre is probably my favourite content creator on YouTube. Probably my favourite. It's very hard because my favourite always changes. It all just depends on what I'm in the mood to watch. I could say that Cinemassacre is my favourite right now, and in the next month or so I'll tell you that Kinda Funny is my favourite content creator on YouTube, and then like 3 weeks later I'll tell you that Channel Awesome is my favourite content creator. It's all about relevancy in my head and all about what I'm in the mood to watch at that time. But at the minute, I think I've held on to this opinion for quite a while now, where I say that Cinemassacre is probably my favourite content creator on YouTube, and that drove me to review the AVGN 1 and 2 Deluxe bundle. And the decision to make that review came probably immediately after my Master System review, because it's strange how it came about, because I was recording footage for the Master System, and it was Wonder Boy on the Master System that made me think about it more, because I was playing it and I was thinking, this game's really hard. I found Wonder Boy, the original, really hard because you had to do a lot of jumping and a lot of firing weapons and a lot of avoiding enemies at the same time, and I think you avoid projectiles, I'm probably wrong, and a lot of hazards, so there's a lot of multitasking going on in that game, for me at least. And I was playing that, and then I was playing other games on my Mega Drive that were quite similar. I was playing Atomic Runner, Atomic Runner is a side-scrolling, auto-scrolling, side-scrolling shooter where you fire projectiles, but you also have to dodge enemies, dodge other projectiles, jump over hazards, all while the screen is constantly scrolling, and there's a lot of reflexes involved in that game as well. And it made me think, well, I've just finished reviewing this Master System. Is there any... And I thought, what other hard games are like this? And I remember watching a review of the Angry Video Game Nerd video games by Cinemassacre, by the nerd himself. He was reviewing his own video games, and that's when I remembered that he mentioned AVGN Adventures, which was the first official game published by Screw Attack and endorsed by the nerd himself. And I decided to play it and try it out. And I says, well, I better start this from the beginning, because I was playing it for about half an hour. And then I decided, you know what, I'm going to go start from the beginning, from scratch, delete my profile and all that. And I'm going to record it, because I think I might want to review this game, because it wasn't in my head immediately. After I finished playing the Master System, I played a couple of retro games, and then I started to want to play more retro games, and then I discovered the AVGN video game, and I started playing that, like I said, and I'm like, right, here we go. I'm going to record this and I'm going to review it. And it wasn't until I got halfway through the original game, I'm like, oh my god, this game is so fucking addictive. I'm going to start writing notes. So I started writing notes. Now, I already write notes, But this was a style that I decided to take from the nerd himself, where he timestamps everything that happens in his games as he plays them, so that he doesn't forget when it happened. So that's what I started to do. And see, here's what I do when it comes to reviewing games. I review games in such a way where I will write down notes about the game. But there comes a point where I'll need footage. And there will be sometimes a case of needing footage and I don't remember where in the video this particular piece of footage happens. And this sounds like something I should have done from the very beginning, because it sounds obvious now that I think about it. But the nerd does this. He timestamps everything that happens in his games, so that when he needs particular pieces of footage after talking about it, he knows exactly where that footage is, and he can go and pull it and put it in his video editor, and there it is. So I decided to do that while reviewing, or while playing AVGN 1 and 2 Deluxe. I had a notepad on my side monitor, and I started writing down. Well, what happened was I recorded it first. I would record each level as I played it, and then I would go back and I would watch the video, and I would mark down every single notable thing in that video that happens, and I would write it down, so that when I went back to review it, I knew exactly what to pull. So I had already written the review out after this. After beating the game, I started writing the review. And there was a lot of things I spoke about that I could use the notes for when they were timestamped. So I knew exactly what I could talk about now. But basically what I'm saying is that writing the review for AVGN 1 and 2 is probably the easiest review I've ever written, because I had everything there. And it sounds so fucking simple. And it is. But I never thought of doing it. Because when I used to, up until now, I'm still learning how to do it properly. But doing reviews back before this one is a lot different. Was a lot different to how I do it now, because I would write notes, but I wouldn't timestamp in. So like I said, I would forget certain types of footage that I would need. So I would try and wing it, and I would try desperately to find that footage, but if I couldn't find it, I'd have to go back into the game and force the footage. And it wouldn't be natural. And I did that a lot. And sometimes I wouldn't even show the footage at all and just have gameplay over it while I spoke. And it wouldn't be contextualized. Because I always go by talking about something and having footage of the thing I'm talking about specifically. That's what I prefer to do. At least nowadays anyway. But I used to scour my videos for sometimes hours looking for particular pieces of footage, and I would sometimes never find it, because I would record the games hours at a time. But with this one, with the AVGN 1 and 2 Deluxe, because the games are all so bite-sized, I was able to record each and every single level, and it would be fresh in my mind. So while it was fresh in my mind, I would record it, stop recording the level after finishing it, go back to my notes, go back to the video, play the video, just let it play. It would be 5 minutes per video, and just type in everything that happens, or at least every notable thing that happens, and write the timestamp on it. Then I would save the file, save the video, stick it into one side. I now have footage of a game that I will need later on, and I'll know exactly where to look for. And that's what I did with AVGN 1 and 2 Deluxe. And even though it took me about a month to do, I was comfortable doing it at the pace I was doing it, because I had all my notes. Because I prefer to have all my reviews done as quickly as possible. Because if I don't, I'll forget. I'll forget where I was creating the review when I go back to it, and I won't feel the desire to be in a hurry to do it anymore. To the point where I have flat out just stopped reviewing certain games outright. I mean, I'm not going to be shy in saying it. I was in the middle of reviewing the entire Streets of Rage trilogy one day. And I was going to make a special video. And it was going to be called Beyond the Rage, my history with the Streets of Rage games. And it was this long-winded project. And then when Streets of Rage 4 got announced, I decided to stop editing the review. because I'm going to wait until Streets of Rage 4 comes out so that I've got more footage to work with. And then when it came out, I completely forgot about the review and I never went back to it. And then when I decided to go back to it, when I remembered, I completely forgot what it was I was talking about on my review. I still have the script, but I couldn't find the proper footage that I needed. So if I ever decide to do that again, I'm going to have to go back and record the whole thing again. Rewrite it all again, because it was a disaster. It was an ambitious project. It was basically going to be like 3 to 4 games in one review. And it was too ambitious for me. It was like a documentary. And I knew it was going to be well over an hour long, and I was like, I can't do this. It's too big. I'll come back when I'm a little bit more better at doing these reviews. So I did. I waited. And I'm still waiting to do it. So I haven't done it yet. So, and I also tried to review The Getaway, which is a game developed by Sony London Studio or something like that. And I decided to play that in a Let's Play format for Just Play, and I fell off of it because I wasn't actually really enjoying the game that much. And I had a review halfway written by then. And then I stopped. And then when I went back to fix it or edit it again, I completely forgot where I was. And so that habit of just leaving the review and then coming back and then forgetting has been the downfall of a lot of potential reviews I could have done. And AVGN 1 and 2 could have been that until I discovered timestamping everything that happens. Or at least properly remembering everything that happens each time I finish a session. Because I would record a game, finish a session, save it, put it in the back burner, and then not think about it. Because I'd say to myself, yeah, I'll go back and I'll look at it for a review, but then I'll forget what it was I did. I'll forget what footage it is I actually needed. And the video footage would be like an hour and a half long, and I'm like, well, I'm not skimming through this. It's too long. So, like I said, I did what I did for AVGN 1 and 2, recording it, timestamping everything, and then I started editing it. And I edited it for a good while. I edited it right through past the first game, and then I was going into the second game, and then I stopped. But I stopped with confidence. See, like I said, I've got a short attention span. I can't stick to the one thing for too long, otherwise I'll just get, my head will just become scrambled. So I stopped and I walked away from it. But I walked away from it knowing that when I come back to this, it's not going to be difficult. I'm going to know exactly what it is I'm doing because I've got all the notes here and they're all time-stamped and I have my script and that's got references to the notes. I'll know exactly what to edit when I come back. I won't be stuck. So I left it for a month. I did not touch AVGN 1 and 2 for almost the entirety of August. And it wasn't until last week, around the 3rd or 4th of September, where I decided to go back and re-edit the review. And it didn't take me long. I was done in 2 days from that point. 2 days. Because I knew exactly what it was I was doing. And I done it. So I scheduled it for the 10th of September and it was perfect in my books. It came out. Although there is one portion of that review that I kind of regret not fixing up. And it was mentioning a character from AVGN 1 that is in that game and also returns for AVGN 2. I forgot to mention that he was in AVGN 1, but I mentioned that he returns to AVGN 2. So, out of context, that's like, you didn't mention him. But yeah, that was it. So yeah, creating the AVGN 1 and 2 Deluxe took me about a month and a half. But that's because I wanted to take my time with it because I knew I had everything right there. And that's probably what I'm going to do going forward with all my reviews. It's going to be more time consuming, but it'll be worth it in the end because you shouldn't be stressed making reviews, and I fully believe that. And I said to myself on the last episode that the most stressed I get when it comes to doing my reviews is Halloween time, because I try and get it out by a deadline. But I don't think I'm worried this time. I think I'll be able to do it no problem, because I know what I'm doing. The only thing I don't know is what game it is I'm actually covering. I do not know what game I'm covering for Halloween this year. I haven't got a fucking clue. I have two games in mind. One seems obvious. Actually, I've got three games in mind. One seems obvious. Another seems kind of obvious. And then there's another game which I had only just recently thought of, because I actually played it this year and I beat it. And it's a type of horror game. And I'm like, why didn't I review this? I could have had it reviewed, done, recorded, scripted, and thrown up there, and I wouldn't have had to worry about it because it was fresh in my mind. It's still kind of fresh in my mind. It would probably be the easiest game for me to review if I'd done it now and have it out by Halloween. So, I don't know. It's a toss-up between three games in my head that I'm going to review for Halloween this year. So I'm not quite sure what it is yet. We're only in the first 2 weeks of September. So I have about 6 or 7 weeks to get this done. 6 weeks, I think, or 5.5, to figure out what to play and what to review next for Halloween. And then after that, God knows. After Halloween, I always struggle figuring out what else I can review, because it wasn't until January or February of this year where I decided to go back and review something else. I think it was Road Rash 3D I reviewed this year, alongside something else I can't remember. But yeah, I don't know. See, when I came back to doing YouTube videos and I started doing GB gaming, I had multiple games in my head that I wanted to review, and I just pumped them out back to back to back to back, so much so that I was able to find a schedule for each review. Because I reviewed so much, I was able to pump out a review at least once a week. And then I changed that to once a month. And then I changed that to whenever the fuck I can get one done. Because it does burn me out. It does burn me out. But with that said, I think that's it. Where are we? 1 hour and 40 something minutes or something like that. Jesus. Okay, I think that's just about it then for this episode of the GB Gaming Podcast. A lot of drivel on this episode, but what can you do? Yeah, that'll do. So thanks very much for taking the time to listen to this. And if you enjoyed it, you know exactly what to do. And if you didn't enjoy it, feedback is always welcome. Again, you can find me on YouTube, you can find me on Spotify, all the links are down below. All the timestamps are there. You know exactly what to do. I'm not going to force it on you. So, with that said, thanks very much for listening. Hope you stick around. This has been Dave talking to you on GB Gaming, where video games come first. Thanks again, and I'll see you on the next one. Stay safe and cheerio.